This is a Fox News alert. Big day on Capitol Hill as two of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet nominees take the hot seats for their confirmation hearings. Attorney General nominee Senator Jeff Sessions is testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and retired Marine Corps General John Kelly, nominee for Secretary of Homeland Security, is being questioned by the Senate Homeland Security Committee. 11 Republicans and 9 Democrats began questioning Senator Sessions this morning. One of the biggest issues he's been facing is criticism from the left on his civil rights record. Earlier, Sessions shot down accusations that he is racially insensitive and disavowed the KKK.
I abhor the Klan and what it represents and its hateful ideology. I deeply understand the history of civil rights in our country and the horrendous impact that relentless and systemic discrimination and the denial of voting rights has had on our African American brothers and sisters.
Okay, so this is an issue where he has faced intense political criticism, especially from the left, despite a very substantial civil rights record, Dana.
Yeah, I've always thought that this nomination was actually going to be fine, and I think today the way to best characterize this hearing was that it was uneventful. Just like a flight that you would take when you land, when they say, "How was your flight?" The best thing you can have on a flight is that it's uneventful. It takes off on time, it lands on time, there's very little turbulence. And you know what you're getting into, and the
Wi-Fi works.
Well, if the Wi-Fi works, it's a total bonus. Then you could like do cheers. He knew this was going to be an issue for him. I do think that he's gotten unfair criticism about his past, and that it wasn't fully characterized in terms of all the good things that he has done. And I think that because he is so smart and knowledgeable and also very charming, that that this nomination will be fine.
All right, so Eric, this is something he tried to preempt, like get the issue right out there from the beginning, making a statement. What did you think about that approach?
Look, we expected this. They were going to come right out of the box and go right after the race issue, and they did, and they got it out of the way. So as much as you don't like these things, I think they're really important to do. You got to listen to them, and you got to listen to the as a Republican or a conservative, you have to listen to the Democrats voice their issues. It started with race. They talked about abortion. They talked about same-sex marriage, gun control, waterboarding. I think was fantastic. He said it's absolute. He says he believes it's absolutely illegal. I wouldn't agree with that, but I wanted to hear him say it. The Muslim ban. He got that out there saying, no, I don't believe in a full Muslim ban. I believe in extreme vetting for people who are dangerous, who exhibit dangerous characteristics.
We have some of those sound bites,
immigration,
yeah.
But important to hear all the topics being touched and how he's going to answer as the chief lawmaker in the country. I just thought there were some stupid questions. Those were good ones. The stupid ones were, did you chant "lock her up"?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, really, Senator, honestly. And Senator Franken taking some cheap shots, I think, at Senator Sessions with some arguments that he made based on someone who said something 30 years ago and then had to recount his testimony 30 years ago. So there was some good and there was some bad.
All right, and Senator Cruz stepped in as well.
He did. He crushed that.
Yeah, and
right
he had a little situation with Franken and correcting the record. All right, Greg, what did you think of how he did today, how he performed?
Well, Sessions had a KKK leader executed. He killed a leader in the KKK. You know who didn't do that? Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Malcolm X, Cory Booker, all the great civil rights, Barack Obama, Eric Holder. They didn't kill a KKK murderer. He killed one of them. So all this race garbage is pure garbage. This whole hearing, it boils down to one thing. Would you do mean things to these specific people? That's how all the questions are. So the whole thing is to paint Republicans as victimizers. And that's always been the case, going back to Bork, you name it, victimizers versus the victimized. And the goal is, like you say, you have to, the boring the better. Your testimony has to be the world's most difficult climbing wall, where there's not a nook or a cranny that people can get a foothold in. The other thing that's really interesting about it is how boring this stuff actually is. And the only comic relief comes in the protesters, who are essentially the rodeo clowns for the testimony. So when it starts getting a little slow, out come the rodeo clowns screaming. And it's like, how do they think that what they're doing is persuasive? Their actual operation is the most unpersuasive method impossible. It's like, I want to persuade you to my idea by throwing up in front of you. Right. That's exactly what they do. They come off as unstable, screechy, weird, disgusting. Every time they do this, they help the person who's being investigated.
Yeah, I mean, Juan, it seems to me here this was really a concerted effort to denigrate in a malicious way a man's record, his reputation, his history of service to this country, and a very strong civil rights record fighting on behalf of disadvantaged communities and minorities.
I just see it so differently. I mean, I think that there are a couple things at play here, and the politics are large. For Democrats, this is an opportunity to take on one of Donald Trump's main supporters during the campaign. I think that's why we went back, as we heard Senator Leahy get to talk about grabbing women by the genitals and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the Democrats are using Sessions as a stand-in a sense, for asking questions of Donald Trump. And they're making Sessions have to say, of course, that would be considered sexual assault. But when it comes to
this is political, then it's just they're being partisan and they're playing games instead of taking. Why don't they ask him legitimate questions about what he would do as Attorney General?
I don't think so at all. I think you've got to understand. Do you consider? You know, it's a legitimate question. Do you consider if a man grabs a woman in that way, is that sexual assault for the top law enforcement officer in the country? I think that's a legitimate question. I disagree with Greg about what he said about Sharpton, Jackson, and all these other people, because none of them were the top law enforcement officer in Alabama.
I agree. I was just saying the point is that Sessions has done more for civil rights than Al Sharpton.
I don't think that's true, but I think I think that Sessions on the ground has a record, and he's presented it today and made the case for himself. Now, I'll say this. When you look at the black community, it's very interesting to me. Condi Rice supports him, and in fact said that he was instrumental in getting Rosa Parks honored, a famous Alabama native. Secondly, Larry Thompson, who was in the Justice Department, also come out supporting. Larry Thompson knows the law, knows all these things. Tim Scott, senator, black senator, South Carolina, also supporting Sessions. On the other side, you get people like Cory Booker, who's going to be the first senator to come out, the senator from New Jersey, who's black. He's going to come out and he's going to say, I oppose Sessions.
Because he's running for president.
Yeah, that's what that is. That's just a
and he also commended working with Senator Sessions on co-sponsoring a bill and said it was his honor and a privilege to work with Senator Sessions on the bill.
Well, there you go. Talking out of both sides of the mouth. Very unique talent.
This is the issue. Okay, this is all this karaoke team sports stuff.
Yeah.
They're all, everybody's friends. Cory Booker is friends with Sessions. Sessions is friends with Dianne Feinstein. Everybody likes Al Franken. They all get along. And then when this comes on and the cameras go on, suddenly it's team sport. And they go, you're a great senator, but I'm not going to vote for you.
There was one issue that both sides brought up, and I thought was the most compelling and interesting argument of the whole, 6 or 7 hours that I was stuck watching. It was a federalism issue. Remember, it was brought up by a Democrat senator first and picked up by a Republican senator after. I know we got to move on, but that was wildly interesting to me that both sides could agree on one thing, that the federal government, it was never put in place to oversee every single law and implicate every single law, implement every single law.
And another hot-button issue that came up was immigration.
Really?
Let's take a listen.
Now, we got 800,000 people that have come out of the shadows that have been signed up. Will you advise the next president, President Trump, to repeal that executive order?
It would certainly be constitutional, I believe, to end that order.
And what's going to happen to those 800,000 if you revoke that order?
Let's fix this system. And then we can work together after this lawlessness has been ended, and then we can ask the American people and enter into a dialogue about how to compassionately treat people who've been here a long time.
Okay, so Dana, obviously this is an issue of contention because immigration has been one of the forefronts of President-elect Donald Trump's campaign and saying secure the borders, jobs here in America, and making sure that we're secure, from a nation as a standpoint, national security as well. So he's addressing this issue as well. Dreamers, because people get upset if you're thinking deporting families, people who aren't committing crimes.
Well, this is where you see the administration, the new incoming administration, start to make the pivot from campaign talk to governing. And so what Senator Sessions said there about working together to talk about this in a rational way, that actually probably doesn't sell well at a rally, but it is better government. And so hopefully that will set the stage for a good discussion about this issue, because we do have to deal with it.
I think on immigration and trade, he's taken controversial stance. He is strongly he was anti the Immigration Comprehensive Reform Bill. And on trade, he's been anti-trade. That's part of the reason that he's aligned himself early with Donald Trump. So I think there are legitimate questions to be asked. I was taken, though, let me just say this, you know, listening to him and on the race issue, when he said he believes there has been relentless systemic discrimination and denial of voting rights in this country. I think it's unusual to hear that kind of language from a Republican. So you guys may think it's a dog and pony show, and he just says that because he wanted to clear that bar.
I think he believes it.
But I appreciated his saying that.
But he prosecuted blacks, but while defending blacks, the people that brought up the issue were black. But that was the key point that everybody kept forgetting.
You mean on the voting rights stuff?
Yeah.
No, well,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say that he prosecuted some people in voting rights cases, and some people thought that it was very not only racial but political against the large black community in Alabama. That's come out both sides, both ways. But to hear him say specifically he thinks black people have been treated unfairly in terms of voting rights, strong in my brain.
All right. Well.